I'm going to stay sitting here so that my photo can be taken beside Jim, so I'm not going to go up there. Again, I'll be very brief because, again, very conscious of time. From an employer's perspective, it's important to note that we surveyed a lot of different size organisations, the predominance being somewhere between 50 and 1,000 employees. So there's a fair mix there to give a true reflection of what employers how employers are feeling. Very quickly, we've seen cautious optimism from employers, cautious optimism going into the first 6 months of 23, with 58% of employers saying they're fairly positive about the economic outlook over the coming 6 months. So we're quite pleased with that. The hybrid working piece is huge, and it's no surprise. So at 71% of firms, I'm actually surprised it's that low, I would have thought it was higher. So at 71% have adopted some form of hybrid working. What the most common that we see is a 3 and 2 split, one way or the other. So again, it's going to be no surprise to anybody here. What is a surprise to me, and it touches upon something that Jim mentioned earlier on, firms are more and more offering what is called an employer-assisted housing program as part of their benefits package. I hadn't seen that before, being honest. And 28% of the employers who were surveyed said they're offering that now. So you touched upon the housing piece earlier on, Jim. That may well help. So I found that point really, really interesting. Salaries increasing, Gail's kind of touched upon that briefly. We saw an average of 22% of employers increasing salaries by over 20%. That actually coincides, or on the ground, we see most people who look for a move from a current role seeking somewhere between 15 and 20% of an uplift when they move jobs. So that's actually quite reflective of what we see kind of day to day when we're speaking with people. High business confidence is a note I've written down here as well. So 43% of employers who were surveyed said they're in growth mode, with a further 21% saying they're in rapid growth mode. That's really encouraging. Everyone knows here, I'm sure, if you've hired people or you're being involved in some sort of interview process, counteroffers are absolutely rife, and salary reviews are needing to become more and more often from employers. And how are employers responding to counteroffer situations? For example, we're seeing the key factors revolve around individual performance, company performance, seniority of the role, and salary benchmarking naturally. So they're the most common factors that firms are taking into account when they're having to deal with salary reviews or when they're having to deal with counteroffers, which are very, very common at the moment. What I was surprised in the survey was that only 14% take into account supply and demand. I was really surprised at that. I would have thought that would be higher. And finally, the final point, again, conscious of time, is the top challenges that employers have identified from the survey that they're facing in 23. Again, this will be of no surprise to anybody. And Jim, you touched upon this a little bit earlier. Talent attraction, talent retention, responding to skills deficits, and changing management actually was mentioned. So they're the 4 key things that employers have identified as their top challenges in 23. So they're the major points that I've kind of taken out from the survey. All the content is in the survey itself, but from an employer's sentiment point of view, they're the majority of the points that identify. Very, very kind of quickly on what we expect this year from an employment point of view. During the networking this morning, a lot of people came up to me and asked me, how's the market? Like, it's a question I get asked all the time, and I was trying to think of a word that best described the last couple of years, and the word that I would use to describe the last couple of years is frenetic. It's been absolutely frenetic from an employment point of view, from a hiring point of view. So we have seen across all our markets a slight softening. There's no doubt about that. Since probably October, November time, we have seen a bit of a softening. But in my view, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it was so frenetic over the last couple of years. So we are still seeing significant confidence from employers, and it kind of came through in the salary survey as well, where 75% say they're planning on hiring in 23. So that fills me with confidence. So there's still a lot of confidence out there from an employment point of view, coupled with the fact that a large percentage of firms hiring the past 12 months have hired as a result of growth in sales and growth in revenue. So a lot of the demand last year wasn't driven by attrition, although it was a part of it, it was driven by growth. That's a very positive sign as we kind of go through 23. We anticipate, on a negative point of view, we do anticipate continued difficulty from employers to secure the top talent that they want. That's not going to change, and it's been the case for the last couple of years. Because what we're seeing from the survey, and Gail touched upon this, 36% of employees are negative about the economy. So that's a challenge. When there's that many people who are negative about what the economic situation is, they're unlikely to actually make a move right now. But on the flip side of that, 31% of people have said that they intend on moving jobs in the next 1 to 2 years. So when you present the right opportunity to the right person in the right way with the right company, there is an appetite to move. So generally what we expect is another busy year, possibly not as busy as it has been for the last couple of years, but as I said, that's not a bad thing.